Today, guys, I've got a real treat for you. I found this in my collection. I don't know how long I've had it. I know I've serviced this watch a long time ago. I didn't really take any notes on it, but I don't wear it, and it's kind of dried up. One of the issues that you have with watches down here in Florida is you got air conditioning, which kind of dries everything out. Then you got the heat and the humidity, which doesn't really help mechanical watches. So if you don't maintain them or run them constantly, they will dry out. And it looks like this watch is a little bit dried up, and it's, for some reason, it's very clean inside, and I just have to figure out why it's not running. It kind of perplexes me a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and tear this down and take a good look inside, what's going on with this watch. And hopefully a quick diagnosis will tell us what is wrong with it. This is a beautiful 18 millimeter lug bracelet on this watch. This is a leather band. I probably have this from either Hadley Roma or some other quality company that I used to buy bands from. It looks like I've worn this at least twice, but it's a smaller watch, and I do like sports watches myself. This is just part of my collection. So we're going to crack this case open. The watch is a solid case back, so we have to pull the bezel out to get to the movement. The movement is just placed inside the watch. It is 14 karat gold solid with a stainless steel insert that's a retaining ring for the movement. So if we look at the case here, you can see it's all white gold, and it's in beautiful shape. I'm going to go ahead and polish this before I put the watch back together and just kind of buff out any of those little wear marks on this. Got some scratches on the crystal. Most of those will buff out pretty well, and we'll polish up that bezel. First things first, I kind of want to take a look and see what's going on with this, why it's not running. Always kind of perplexes me when I have a really clean watch that I know ran real well. And, of course, 8 or 10 years later, you look at it and it's like, well, we got to go back in there and maybe do a little work on it. So you can see I'm just kind of pushing that balance to see if it'll start and kick off, and it's really not. So there could be some other issue. And I think with this watch, it's probably going to be something really simple. So I'm going to pull off the hour and minute hand. Again, we're going to put a little piece of plastic over this so we don't scratch the dial as we're prying off the hands. And I'll use my hand tool removers, and we'll just pop these off. Be very careful if you do try this yourself. I use polished tools here, and I always use either a plastic or a dial protector. You can see here I'm trying to get the second hand off, and for some reason that's on there pretty good. This could have been my mistake. We might have tightened the second hand down too tight because I can't get it off the dial here. We're just going to lever it up a little bit, just very carefully, and see if I can pry it up. I ended up using a small screwdriver just to wedge under one end of it. And once I got underneath it, the second hand did come off pretty easily. Once I took that second hand off, you can see the movement started to take it off right away, and that's probably an indication that that second hand was on too tight and was rubbing against the dial. That's enough pressure to stop a watch movement from running. So for me, the next step is to just double check everything, make sure that there's enough oil on the pinions and the jewels are well lubed enough. I'm going to go through and I'll pull the dial off just to look at the underside of the dial on the front or the upper side of the watch movement. Make sure there's no debris under there. Again, this watch is pretty immaculate inside. It looks like it's just pretty dried up, as well as that second hand kept it from running. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. While I'm doing that, I'm going to go ahead and give you a little bit of a history of the Croton Watch Company and this particular model watch. So while you're watching me do a little bit of a light service on this watch, let's talk a little bit about this particular watch as well as the Croton Watch Company. The Croton Watch Company was started in 1878, and it was located in a small town along the Italian and Swiss borders. The brand quickly became known for quality craftsmanship and very good designs, very good mechanical movements. In the early 1900s, Croton kind of survived World War I and World War II without too many issues. By the mid-1900s, it had gained a very good international following as well as a European following. In 1991, Croton was acquired by the Nationwide Time Company. It's a family-owned business specializing in both wholesale and quality timepieces. The acquisition marked a new era for the brand, and we started seeing a whole lot of modernization to the watches coming out of Croton at that time. And you got to see kind of a nicer quality of watch come from the Croton Company. Nationwide commitments to introducing at least 250 new styles every year, focused on quality, precision, and very, very good styles and designs. Croton Watch Company is now available in more than 5,000 locations worldwide, and the brand has expanded its markets throughout both retail and TV shopping networks. Croton remains one of the few family-owned businesses operated by the Mermelstein family, and they are located in New Jersey, believe it or not. And they will be celebrating their 150th anniversary in 2028, which is soon approaching. The Croton Nivada Grenchen watch was a very, very nice style watch. This is more of a moderately priced luxury watch. This particular model has diamonds in the dial, which was not, too common at the time. Nivada Grenchen actually is located in Grenchen, Switzerland. Was founded by Jacob Snyder. The watch company was founded in 1926. They did not make their own movements. So they would farm out movements from other companies such as Croton or Etta at the time. They didn't make their own watch movements, but they did make their own cases. They did their own style of dials and hands. So they were more of a designer company instead of a movement manufacturer. In 1939, they struck a deal with Croton to allow the company to import and distribute their watches throughout the United States. As a result, many Nivada Grenchen watches were branded as Croton Nivada or Croton Nivada Grenchen. Throughout the years, they've had several models of very high-end, well, not high-end watches, but they've had really nice, like, sports watches. The Antarctic was somewhat between a sports watch and a luxury watch. That came out in the 1950s. In 1961, they launched the Chronomaster, and that was a waterproof chronograph with 3 collections: the Chronomaster, the Aviator, and the Sea Diver, and that became a significant asset to their brand in the early 60s. The Depth-O-Matic, released in 1964, was the first diver's watch with a depth indicator, and that watch sold very well for the company. In 2020, the Nivada Grenchen brand was revived, and in 2020, focusing its iconic models as the Chronomaster, the Aviator, Sea Diver, and the Antarctic have come back. They've come back in slightly different styles. Of course, they're not so much like the vintage style watches we saw back in the 40s and 50s. The diamond face watch here that you see combines a rich history of both Croton and Nivada Grenchen brands, and here's a little brief history of that. The original partnership was founded in 1926 in Grenchen, Switzerland, and became known for its production of very reliable and affordable watches. Croton partnered with them in 1939, as I've said before, and their partnership really grew both companies into the United States and again throughout Europe. Diamond accents on the face feature genuine diamonds set onto the face in gold, and you can see this case and the bezel of this case are both solid 14 karat white gold, which is kind of nice. And these models came in either stainless steel or 14 karat white gold. So if you see any of these watches, that's what you'll be looking for. These were almost always manually wound watches, not automatics, as automatics weren't that popular until the 50s. And they have a very nice vintage style, which a lot of people still seek out today. So this watch, I imagine, is going to be very popular among some of my collectors that I deal with. I'm going to run this watch for a week or so, and then I'm going to probably put it up for auction on eBay. So if any of you are interested, just leave a note below, and I'll be posting something on my channel about that when it does come up. The Croton Nivada Diamond Face watch is a testament to the enduring legacy of both brands, the Nivada brand as well as the Croton brand. So here you can see I'm going to go back and start assembling the watch again. I've got the watch running, and it's running pretty well. It's running about 6 or 7 seconds fast per day. I'm having a hard time. Like, it's not a micro adjustment on this particular model watch. It's an old ETA style movement, so it's not. It really doesn't have any fine control over the speed. So you have to be, just slight little changes. Go ahead and throw the dial back on after we put the hour wheel and the dial washer back in. We'll put the dial back on and tighten up the 2 screws that hold that in place. This is a 2-post dial. Once we get those dial feet tightened up on the watch, we can go ahead and start looking at the next step. I'm going to go ahead and polish up the case and the bezel. I'm going to do a little bit of polishing work on the crystal so that we can make it look a little bit better than it is. But here you can see the results of the watch itself. That dial is in very, very good shape for this particular age of a watch, and we want to make sure nothing happens to it. I'm going to put that aside, and we'll start working on the rest. So here's the case. Again, it's 14 karat gold case. I've already gone ahead and polished it. And if you look closely, you can see my little mark there where I mark what I do on the watch. I use a laser engraver to do that, just to make those as small as possible and legible for whoever works on this watch in the future. Now we'll go ahead and place the movement and the dial back into the case. Again, this is a 14 karat gold white case with 18 millimeter lugs. The case itself is 33.2 millimeters in diameter, making it a rather small watch, but that was pretty common in the 40s and 50s, even into the 60s with some of the luxury watches. Now here we're going to be very careful. As you remember before, when we popped that second hand off, the watch just took off and started running, which tells me that initially the second hand was put on too tight, either by me or by chance. It was just done wrong. So we're going to go ahead and just tap that down ever so lightly so that it doesn't rub against the dial itself. Again, anytime you put a hand on a watch, you really don't want it to rub on the dial because it will take the paint or the lacquer finish off of the dial, and it kind of ruins the dial. You can get these redone. It's pretty reasonable to get these redone, usually between $175 and $300 to have a dial completely redone. The process takes about a month, however. So now that second hand's on and the watch is running, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to clean up the hour hand here with a little bit of a polishing cloth. Again, these are white gold, so we're going to be very careful with those hands. Just take off a little bit of that oxidation that's on there. Shines up the hand enough, and we'll put the hour hand onto the watch. Typically, I like to aim the hour hand either at the 3 o'clock or 9 o'clock position when I'm placing hands on, especially a watch that doesn't have a date. And here you can see I'm just going to push down the hour hand onto the hour wheel, and then we'll go ahead and make sure that it's not rubbing on the dial itself. I apologize for the focus. Kind of hard to see. My big fat fingers in the way. But I'm going to tamp that down, leave about a 1/10 of a millimeter gap or 20th of a millimeter gap between the dial and the hour hand. We're going to turn that over and aim it towards the 3 o'clock position. With that done now, we'll work on the minute hand. The minute hand is the same as the hour. It is gold, so we're going to kind of polish it up a little bit, get some of the oxidation off of it. And once we've got that done, we'll go ahead and place it onto the watch. And we're going to be very careful here. Now you can see the particular hand here, the tip is bent down at an angle, which is to conform to the curvature of the brim of the crystal. So what we want to do when we place the hour hand, we want to place it right at the 12 o'clock position. Since we have the hour hand pointing towards the 3, the minute hand is going to point towards 12. That way we know we're in the right position. I'm going to use the solid faced minute or the hand tool just to push that down onto the cannon pinion. Once that's in there, we're going to go ahead and we're going to put this in setting mode, and we're going to go around the whole dial and make sure that the hand is not touching any part of the indicators surrounding the perimeter of the dial. Now, I do suggest if you're going to do this yourself, if you are brave enough, go ahead and do that, but make sure that you test everything. Make sure that your cannon pinion, your minute hand, might be a little bit off, so you want to test in every possible position to make sure that the hand is not going to hit an indicator, which would stop the watch from running. Again, I've got this in setting mode, and I'm just going to turn this around. Here you can see at the 9 o'clock indicator we have a little bit of a contact problem, so I'm just going to aim that up And again, just bend that around all the way. This watch is pretty much all original, so it's just the way I'm going to keep it. I'm not going to do anything else to this watch, modify those hands in any particular way. This bezel is notched for the crown. Crown is a white gold crown, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to squeeze this bezel back in place. I did not replace the crystal. Again, I believe this is probably a crystal from the 60s, and it is in really good shape. I like to leave watches in as much original condition as possible. I'm going to snap that in. It's a very good tight seal, but these watches are not waterproof, nor are they water resistant. So if you do have a watch like this, especially from the 40s or 50s or even into the early 60s, dress watches typically did not have a water resistant or waterproof case. That's not to be said that they weren't available, but they were typically not. So you do want to avoid swimming. You want to avoid, heavy moisture environments. Rain's not going to hurt it, but don't go to the beach with this thing. That is the watch in a nutshell. Looks really good. Again, we did polish up the crystal a little bit. I got most of the scratches off. I did touch up the back cover as well as the bezel, so those have been buffed out a little bit. There are some minor scratches on the bezel, but it's not enough for me to justify polishing down to, perfection. I think the watch is in really good shape as it is. You can see by the back here, I get rid of my fingerprints here. We'll just wipe that off a little bit, and it's in good shape. Again, this Croton watch has got an ETA movement inside, which was pretty common for some of these models. And you can see that this design coming from Nevada is just a beautiful, beautiful design that I think will stand the testament of time. No pun intended. I really like this watch. I'm sure that the next person who gets this watch is going to enjoy it just as much as I have. Guys, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. I appreciate you watching. I appreciate everybody coming back to watch my videos. If you're not a subscriber, consider subscribing, as I do offer videos as often as possible. Right now in Florida, it is snowbird season, so we are busy, and I can't get videos up every week, but I will be trying. Again, thanks for watching. Have a great day. Enjoy.